Some dreams feel within reach, but as for Simi, this is a dream that's come true. Get comfortable, grab your popcorn, and join her as she takes you through her incredible journey to Korea. Simi, a young teenage Nigerian girl, has always dreamed of studying in Korea and visiting the country because of her love for its culture, language, and food. Her room is adorned with K-pop star posters, and she often watches K-dramas and listens to K-pop with great excitement. One day, Simi received an opportunity to study in Korea as an exchange student due to her academic brilliance in Nigeria. Her parents were proud and supportive, and a few days after receiving her acceptance letter, her mother accompanied her to the airport. In Korea, Simi stayed with a host family, Mr. and Mrs. Park, who had a son named In-soo. In-soo was the class captain and one of the brightest students in his grade. He was also close friends with another boy, Min-sun. Their bond was deep, as their parents were close friends before Min-sun's father passed away. While In-soo and Simi were in different classes, they sometimes walked home together after school. When Simi started school in Korea, she met a popular and reserved classmate named Min-sun. He was her seatmate and was known for his handsome appearance, which attracted the attention of both girls and boys. However, Min-sun was distant and rarely spoke to others, making him seem unapproachable. To make matters more complicated, Min-sun had previously dated Yujin, a bully who led a group of mean girls in the class. Yujin, along with her two best friends, often picked on others. On Simi's first day in class, Min-sun's cold demeanor made it hard for her to connect with him, even though they sat next to each other. Simi tried her best to strike up conversations, but Min-sun barely responded. He often rested his head on the desk, and Simi had to knock on the table just to get him to move when she needed to pass by. Despite these challenges, Simi remained optimistic and embraced her time in Korea. She explored Seoul, tried various Korean dishes, and visited landmarks like the Han River, where she took pictures and enjoyed the scenery. Even though she hadn't made any friends yet, she cherished her dream of studying in Korea and was determined to make the most of it. One day, Simi and Min-sun were paired together for a group project by their teacher. Initially, Min-sun barely contributed, leaving Simi to shoulder most of the work. However, Simi was determined to succeed and took the lead. Over time, this project became a turning point in their relationship. During their discussions, Min-sun began to open up to Simi. He revealed that he was struggling with personal issues, including the immense pressure from his mother to be perfect and live up to high expectations after the loss of his father, whom he deeply loved. As they worked on the project together, Simi and Min-sun grew closer. Simi started spending time with Min-sun, and this didn't go unnoticed by Yujin. Yujin, still jealous and bitter over her failed relationship with Min-sun, began targeting Simi with threats and bullying. One day, Yujin cornered Simi and called her names, mocking her for thinking Min-sun might be interested in her. To Simi's shock and frustration, Min-sun walked past the scene without intervening. Though Min-sun remained cold to Simi in class, he acted kind and caring whenever he visited her at home. This confused Simi and left her feeling hurt. Why didn't Min-sun stand up for her when she was being bullied? Why did he seem distant in class yet warm outside school? These unanswered questions troubled Simi, making her question Min-sun's true feelings and intentions. The next day at school, Simi couldn't hold in her frustration any longer. She dragged Min-sun to the hallway and confronted him. "How could you not defend me when you saw Yujin bullying me?" she demanded. Min-sun replied coldly, "It's not my problem." "You don't know Yujin. She's not just some girl." Simi was furious. "So you'd rather let her bully me than stand up for what's right?" she asked, then stormed off, leaving him behind. A few days later, their class teacher announced an upcoming field trip to the beach. The class was thrilled, but Simi felt uneasy. She didn't look forward to spending an entire day around the bullies or the friends she felt had abandoned her. On the day of the trip, everyone boarded the school bus. Min-sun sat at the back, surrounded by a group of girls who were flirting with him, while Simi chose a seat at the front, distancing herself from her classmates. Just as the bus was about to leave, a girl with brightly colored hair approached Simi. "Hi, can I sit here?" the girl asked with a friendly smile. Simi's face lit up. "Sure, why not?" she replied, her heart racing with joy. The girl introduced herself as Grace, and they quickly struck up a lively conversation. They laughed, shared stories, and listened to music together throughout the trip. At the beach, they stuck together, opening up to one another. Grace revealed her fascination with Africa and asked Simi all about Nigeria, its food, culture, and traditions. Simi was delighted to share, and Grace said she'd love to visit Nigeria someday. On the ride back, Grace and Simi shared an earpiece, listening to music and chatting. But their moment was interrupted when Minsoon approached them. "Grace, can I switch seats with you?" he asked. Grace hesitated, but eventually agreed. Now sitting beside Minsoon, Simi fell silent. For a while, neither of them spoke. "Why are you so quiet?" Minsoon asked after a few moments. Simi ignored him, pretending not to hear. Minsoon leaned closer and pulled her earphone away. "I'm talking to you, Simi." "What do you want me to say?" she snapped. "Why are you so confusing? Sometimes you're cold and other times you're caring. Just why?" Minsoon leaned back with a smirk. "I've been busy." "Busy with what?" Simi retorted, frustration evident in her tone. Minsoon interrupted before she could finish. "Are you jealous?" Simi froze, unsure how to respond. Before she could say anything, Minsoon put his headphones on and leaned back, pretending to sleep. Simi glanced at him occasionally during the ride, convinced he was only pretending. The trip back felt like the longest ride ever. The next day, Eugen cornered Simi in the hallway and bullied her again, furious over seeing her and Minsoon together on the bus. Minsoon walked by, visibly angry at Eugen's behavior, but he still didn't step in to stop her. Simi noticed him walking away, their eyes meeting briefly, which only deepened her frustration. That evening, Simi went straight to her room, avoiding everyone, especially Minsoon, who often visited his friend, Insu. Hours later, she heard a knock on her door. She opened it to find Minsoon standing there. "What do you want?" she asked curtly. Minsoon gently pushed the door open and stepped inside. "I'm sorry," he said. "I should have defended you. I promise I'll stand up for you from now on. If Eugen or her friends bother you again, let me know. I'll take care of it." Without waiting for a reply, he left. That night, Simi replayed his words in her head. Does he really mean it? What changed his mind, she wondered. I thought Eugen wasn't just some girl. The next day, during gym class, Simi, Grace, and a few other students were watching a handball match on the school field. Minsoon was playing, his athleticism and skill drawing everyone's attention. Simi couldn't take her eyes off him, admiring the way he moved with ease and confidence. Grace nudged her playfully. "You've been staring at him since we got here," she teased. Simi blushed, trying to hide her embarrassment. "I wasn't staring," she protested, though her eyes betrayed her. Grace chuckled. "Sure, keep telling yourself that." Simi replied, "I'm not. I'm just watching the match." Grace smirked knowingly. "Sure, if you say so," she teased with a playful smile. Meanwhile, Eugen noticed Simi staring at Minsoon and glared at her. Seizing the moment, Eugen tried to throw a ball at Simi, but before it could hit her, Minsoon appeared and caught it just in time. Standing beside Simi, he asked, "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," she replied softly. Minsoon then turned to Eugen. "If you pick on her again, you'll only embarrass yourself," he warned. Eugen stormed off the court, fuming with anger, while Minsoon turned back to Simi. "Wait for me after the game. I'll walk you home," he said before jogging back to rejoin the match. Later, as Minsoon walked her home, Simi couldn't help but steal glances at him. She was still surprised by his actions earlier. "He's such a sweet boy," she thought to herself. 2 days later, it was the weekend. Mr. and Mrs. Park invited Minsoon and his mom over to celebrate winning a major contract. The small gathering included Minsoon, his mom, Insu, Simi, and the Parks. They shared a lovely meal together, laughing and celebrating. Later in the evening, Simi video called her mother from her room. Just as she was about to end the call, Minsoon walked in. "Come with me," he said. "Where are we going? Am I getting a wedding proposal?" she teased, making Minsoon laugh. He led her outside, and they spent the evening playing games, singing karaoke, and enjoying dinner at a cozy restaurant. Just as they were about to leave, something magical happened. Snow began to fall gently from the sky. Simi's eyes lit up, and she rushed outside. "Is this snow?" she asked excitedly. Minsun smiled. "Yes, it's the first snow of the year." Simi held out her hands, letting the snowflakes land on her palms. "This is the first time I've ever seen snow," she exclaimed joyfully. Minsun watched her, smiling at her childlike wonder. They played in the snow, laughing and throwing snowballs at each other. It was a night Simi would never forget. The next day at school, the students were abuzz with excitement as they spotted a prom poster. Simi, feeling shy but determined, approached Minsun. "Will you be my prom date?" she asked hesitantly. Minsun hesitated. "I don't really like those kinds of parties," he admitted. Simi's heart sank, but before she could respond, he added, "But I'll go. For you." Her face lit up with happiness. "Thank you," she said. Simi and Grace spent the next day shopping for the perfect prom dress. When the night of the prom arrived, Minsun was stunned to see Simi. She looked breathtaking in her dress. "You look beautiful," he said. "And you look handsome," she replied, her cheeks flushing. They danced together, enjoying each other's company. But the night took a turn when the principal announced Minsun and Yujin as prom king and queen. Simi's heart sank as she watched them dance. Unable to bear it, she ran outside, tears streaming down her face. Grace found her and wrapped her in a comforting hug. "Forget him, Simi. Let's go back inside and enjoy the party. Show him you don't care." Simi wiped her tears and nodded. Together, they returned to the dance floor, laughing and having fun. Minsun noticed Simi laughing with Grace and decided to give her space, unsure whether he should approach her or let her be. The following week, one of their classmates, Junho, announced his birthday party at a poolside venue and invited the entire class. "I hope you'll come," Grace said to Simi. "You deserve some fun." Simi hesitated but eventually agreed. "Okay, I'll go." At the party, everyone was holding glasses of wine and mingling. When Yujin saw Simi, she walked up to her and poured her drink all over Simi's dress. "Oh, I'm so sorry. That was an accident," Yujin said mockingly. Embarrassed and upset, Simi rushed out of the room. Grace quickly followed her to the bathroom to help clean her dress. Meanwhile, Minsun saw what happened and stormed over to Yujin. "Yujin, if you ever pick on my girl again, I'll make sure you regret it," he said angrily. Yujin's jaw dropped in shock, but her face quickly twisted into anger. "That was an accident," Yujin stammered. Minsun shook his head. "I know it wasn't. You did it intentionally," he said firmly, glaring at her before walking away. After that day, Minsun stopped speaking to Simi. He no longer visited her house or called her, and the silence between them grew heavier. Simi missed him deeply, longing for the good times they had shared. A few days later, Simi went to a mart to get some groceries. Insu hadn't returned home yet, so she went alone. As she left the store, rain began to pour heavily. She waited for a while, hoping it would stop, but eventually decided to walk home in the rain. As she walked, feeling the cold drops soaking her, she suddenly felt something cover her. A hand gently touched her shoulder. She looked up and saw Minsun standing beside her, holding an umbrella over her. "How did you know I was here?" she asked, surprised. "I saw you at the mart buying groceries," he said in a soft voice. "I wanted to pay first, so I couldn't follow you immediately, but I thought you might need this." His face was warm and kind. "Let me take you home." Simi hesitated, but eventually nodded. They walked home together in silence at first, the sound of the rain filling the quiet. Finally, Simi spoke. "Thank you for what you did at the pool party and for this." "You don't have to thank me," Minsun replied. Simi hesitated before asking, "Then why did you ignore me all these days? Why didn't you come to our house anymore?" Minsun sighed, his steps slowing as he turned to her. "I didn't want to see you hurt," he admitted. "I also missed you. I missed us. But seeing you in pain because of Yujin, it made me feel helpless. You're so kind and strong, and it makes me want to do better." Simi smiled softly. You don't have to be perfect, Minsun. You just need to be honest. He didn't reply, but shifted the umbrella closer to shield her head from the rain. They walked the rest of the way home, the silence between them now filled with understanding. 2 years passed in Seoul, and Simi found happiness, not just in school but in the friends and love she had discovered. Yet, as her time there drew to a close, the thought of leaving filled her with dread. One evening, Simi and Grace went to their favorite restaurant for dinner. Simi was unusually quiet, and Grace noticed. "Simi, you've been so quiet all day. What's on your mind?" Grace asked. Simi sighed. "I love it here. I don't want to leave, but my parents are expecting me to return home after I graduate high school. I hate the thought of leaving." Grace reached across the table, squeezing Simi's hand. "Talk to your parents about it. They'll understand if you explain how much this place means to you." Encouraged by Grace's words, Simi confided in Minsun, who smiled brightly upon hearing her worries. "I'm so happy to hear that, Simi," Minsun said. "I don't want you to leave either." Later that night, Simi called her parents in Nigeria over a video call. She told them how much she loved her life in Seoul and how she wanted to stay to pursue her university studies. Though hesitant at first, her parents eventually agreed. Their approval filled Simi with a newfound courage to embrace her life in Seoul fully. Simi settled into her new life as a university student, balancing classes, part-time work, and her friendships with Grace and Minsun. Her love for Minsun grew stronger, and he stayed true to his promises. One evening, Minsun took Simi to the beach. As they watched the waves crash against the shore, he turned to her with a soft smile. "I'm so happy you stayed, Simi," he said. "You've changed my life." Simi's heart swelled with happiness, and she smiled back. "And you've changed mine. You gave me a reason to stay. I love you, Minsun." They embraced under the fading light of the sunset, their hearts full of love and gratitude for the journey they had shared. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, share, and follow for more. Thanks for watching.